G'day Bob, and welcome to this interview.
Great to be here, Jack.
Can you tell us whereabouts in New South Wales Bob Purtell first saw the light of day?
West Wyalong, 1937. The year 1937, yeah. 10th of 1937.
And I believe that...
There was a scream in the mallee, and that was me.
and I believe after leaving school at the age of 14, I think it was?
14 and a half, yeah, I became a baker.
Became a baker. And what happened next after you left the bakery?
Well, I was pretty upset because really I wanted to be a baker. I'd gotten right to the end of my 4 years trade almost, and I missed out because of a skin problem. You can't work in a bakehouse with all your skin falling off. This happened 3 times and 6 weeks each time to heal it up, and we had to part company. So I was pretty cut up about that, so I just packed the swag and started to move around.
And what did you do then?
Well, I started off, after I left town, I went to Yass, and I done a little bit of work there. I went to Canberra and met my father for the first time when I was 18. I worked in the Ainslie Rex Hotel as a drink waiter, and then my dad and I didn't last long. We fell out pretty early in the piece. I burned all my paintings in his backyard before I left town because I didn't want anyone to have them, and I only saved one of them, which I gave to a mate from West Wyalong years later. Don't know where he is now, Rex Smith, but he got the last painting, and then I just went on the track, virtually from town to town, doing whatever I could, sawmilling, whatever. Didn't go back to Wyalong very much. Didn't like the place much anyway. Rotten little town.
So when did your interest in playing music, and what was your influences in country music?
Well, I first began in music. I was 9. I took up a trumpet. I was a trumpet player, and I had one of the best teachers, I suppose, you could get in the bush, because he was an old-time 30s musician, and he migrated from England, and his name was Freddie Butcher, and of course he was quite good, but he buried himself in West Wyalong for some unknown reason, and didn't want to carry on with any fame or whatever, but he was a top man, done a command performance before he left England. So we got a man that really knew his business.
So when was your first paid gig in country music?
In country music? Well, I believe it was probably Bill Kelly's show. That was... He used to put together package shows, and people like Jan Kelly, Kenny Kitching, all these great people were on those shows. And Kevin King's, we were a product of, usually, as I remember, the Kevin King's Country Sounds. We all met at the fabulous Crystal Palace, and maybe it was Kevin King probably gave me my first pay gig, or Bill Kelly. I wouldn't remember now which way that went around. But I teamed up with, I was still truck driving, local carrying in Sydney, wool carter mainly. And I teamed up with a guy called Patrick Lord, Aboriginal friend of mine. And he played guitar and I played a little kit of drums, and we went out as a duo doing pub gigs together, and that was a great time, formative thing. But in the beginning, I think that I didn't last long as an amateur. I went out to a place called Wallacia, and Bill Kelly had a little Sunday afternoon show out there, and they urged me to get up and sing because I really hadn't sung publicly before much, and so I said, oh, but I only know about half of about 8 country songs that I can pull off the top of my head at the moment. They said, well, come and sing something. And there's a great guitar player there, the late Bill Mostyn, and he he said, "Oh, how does the song go?" And I sang 90 miles an hour down the Dead End Creek, and he put in all the wah-wahs and everything that went with it, and that was fine. He was my first real professional guitarist behind me, the great Bill Marston, and that was from then I started to get paid then, and then Patrick and I broke up. I went to a pub in the west of Sydney, and Patrick stayed at the Rose Shamrock and Thistle in town. So that was our beginnings.
And I believe that you've met a lot of artists in your time, other artists in country music, and the late great Reg Lindsay.
Yes.
Now, in my opinion, he was the king of country music. That's in my opinion. But he played a part in your career too, about something about clothes.
Oh yes, and I did 10 Reg Lindsay shows on television. I first saw Oriel Andrews in black and white, and she when I was a boy, and that was a Reg Lindsay show down south then. And well, it came to when my turn was in full blaring colour. I didn't start till I was 30 years age into professional country music. So Reg was just one of those great guys. He looked after me. I couldn't find any clothes to wear. I wanted to dress up a little bit, and there was just nothing much around. In those days, you know, there was no online buying or whatever. You couldn't just go to America and say, "Oh, just send me this or send me that," or whatever. It was too much trouble. So we relied on Reg Lindsay, and then later on he sold out to Ross Rollins in Parramatta. That was the last Reg Lindsay store, Parramatta store.
And Bob, what was this story about leaving your clothes or something at the Reg Lindsay show?
Well, Q2, Q9 Brisbane was where they made the Reg Lindsay show, and we were all hurried to get away and get our plane back, and I left the suit bag with the blue suit hanging over the rail outside the studio, and of course I never thought of it again. And I got back into Sydney, and hang on, I got no suits. And of course the fabulous blue suit was in there, which is now in some museum in Tamworth, I believe, with the moss eating it. And yes, the next thing I know, it arrived in the post, and I got the suit back. So that was very fortunate. But I since then, when the other one got a little bit sort of decrepit, I had to get a fake one built, which I still have in there, somewhere in there.
And apart from Reg Lindsay, I believe you also appeared on the Frank Ifield TV show.
Oh yeah, Frank's a wonderful guy. He lives out this area here, and where I am now. Yes, a wonderful guy, Frank. We had a dinner together last year. One afternoon over at Clark Winter Lakes or somewhere, and wonderful man. I sang one of Laurie Allen's songs, a song that Laurie wrote actually for the great Lionel Rose. Okay. And we made a little video of that on the show, and it's a song about Lionel Rose's childhood, where he was brought up on the Jackson's track, okay. Which was a logging track. And it's you know, the words were about the corduroy roads made out of logs, you know, crisscross sort of logs, doing a corduroy sort of pattern, you know, thing, logs up the and straight logs up the road just to keep the trucks from bogging down, you know. And the song was called Jackson's Track by Laurie Allen, and Lionel recorded it, of course. And Laurie said to me, "Oh, I've made a record of this myself. He said, "You can use my soundtrack because you can go an octave lower than me, so you'll fit in." So I used Laurie's backing music, and then of course by the time I got to the television show, he had a band, and of course they studied the music, and they played behind me live.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Jackson's track had another go, and the late great Lionel Rose was the instigator really of all of that, because he was the man that was written about.
Now, when was your first, and what was your first recording?
Motivating Day. First crack, gold guitar, best new talent at the tender age of 30, whatever. Yeah, well, on the flip side of that, of course, was the Trucker's Lullaby, which was written by me.
Yep.
I was helped then by Laurie Allen, but that was my song idea, and most of the words and that. And most of the trucking songs that we wrote together, or he wrote, you know, I had to guide him through the truck business and the words that we used and all that sort of thing, because Laurie was a musician and a singer, just about nothing else. He never done anything but his business since, the music business since he left school.
And I believe your first album, Cross Country Cowboy?
Yep.
Came in 1978.
Yeah, well, I made about probably 3 singles or so. And the Cross Country Cowboy album, I spoke to the great Red Steagall. We met at the Wandong Festival, and I said, "You're just the man I'm looking for." I didn't know that he was withered down one side. He had polio as a child, and he had a walking stick the same as mine. And I think he thought I was copying him, but I had no idea that he had a walking stick. And he held his walking stick out that looks the same as the one I used to use on stage. He said, "Yours hasn't got a Texas star on the top." And I said, "No, it doesn't, Red." And I said, "Well, I think he thinks so, that I've copied him," but I had no idea that he actually needed a walking stick. I only needed the walking stick since I jumped off the Dre cart on the race series and broke the foot.
And I believe that you released an album or two with Nichols and Dimes?
Yes, Nev Nichols. Great Nev, yeah. On tour with him once, yeah. I walked out in my long johns and everything with the gun dangling down and everything, and nobody had any beer at this motel. I didn't know that. And I'd always try to pull up a piece of someone's veranda if I was living out of town, rather than motels or hotels. To me was so cold and so awful. And I'd rather go to a private house, you know, have proper breakfast and all that sort of thing, you know, and not toast that would crack if you hit the floor with it. Break like a dish, you know. So, yeah, I knew which side was up. Anyway, yeah, well, I had a lot of problems with those sort of things, and I didn't really go for board accommodation, store-board accommodation, I called it. And Nev was on the track with me, and I was out there yelling for beer. He said, "Oh, you can't do this, Bob," and put the gun away and all that sort of stuff. And I'm out there in long johns and cowboy boots. And a hat. And we had some great times, and the Nev Nichols show, I went down further down south with that, and we ran into Lionel Rose down there, and Lionel wanted to have a little bit of a sing on our show, you see. And of course he didn't know that Nev Nichols was the boss. And Lionel come up to me and he said, "Oh, Cowboy Bob," he said, "can I have 2 or 3 songs on your show?" I said, it's not my show, Lionel." He said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Well," I said, "it's that guy over there, Nev Nichols." "Oh," he said, "Oh, yeah, Nev Knuckles." I said, yeah, you go and see him. And I said, "I'm pretty sure that he'll give you a little spot there in the middle somewhere." And anyway, he walked over to Nev Nichols, and he taps Nev and says that, you know, I'm Lionel Rose, and I started to talk to Neville a bit out of my earshot. And anyway, next thing I see Nev look over at me, and I'm going, do it, you know, or suffer the consequences. Lionel might job you if you don't give him a spot. So, yeah, we had fun with that one. Oh yeah, Tex, the great Tex, yeah. Well, my first encounter with the Tex Morton Show, I don't know, I'd say I must have been about 8 or 9 years old, and I'd saved up all my little pennies and threepences and sexpences and all of that money in that day, and penny halfpennies and all that sort of thing. And I got the fare together for our tickets in to the Tex Morton Show for my grandfather and me, 1 and 6 apiece. And I'd raised all of this, that was a lot of money back then. And we went into the show, and of course Tex was drunk. He'd been downtown all day, and they'd had a good time. Somebody looped a stock whip out of the pub and cut one of the young boys across the backside with it, and that caused a bit of a stir in West Wyalong. And of course Tex staggers into the ring in the middle of his show there, and he just opened up with, I got your money now, I don't care whether you enjoyed the show or not. And my grandfather grabbed me by the ear, twisted it, and I walked tippy-toe all the way home. And he said, oh, what a pig of a man. And anyway, it took me many years then to catch up with the Tex again, but by then, you know, we were friends. And he was one of the beginners instigators of real country music in Australia, really, and, along with Smokey Dawson. They were the two that really stood out, really started it all, to my way of thinking anyway. And I knew them both personally, and you know, to me that was a very, well, it's a treasured thing that I hold very dear, that I was friends with both of those gentlemen.
Now, Bob, you appeared on various country music festivals, including Tamworth, and the Gold Creek Country Festival in Canberra back in 1981, which included Buddy Williams,
yeah.
Laurie Allen,
yeah,
and many others. Were there other festivals you appeared on?
Oh, Wandong was great.
Oh, Wandong, okay.
Yeah, that's where I met Red Steagle and got permission to sing I Gave Up Good Morning Darling and We Love You Daddy for this. And yeah, spoke to Red Steagle there about that, and I said, well, we can't find, you know, who's got the music. And he said, oh, I think we left it with Con Brio in Nashville, Tennessee. And so anyway, Coljoy got on the line and found that was absolutely right. He had left the song, I Gave Up Good Morning Darling, with Con Brio music. So we got permission to use that. To me, there was two kinds of music. There was Australiana or bush balladeering, call it what you like. And then there was traditional country, which is American in the beginning and always will remain there, the same as jazz and lots of other forms of the music, modern music. And, you know, me being a trumpeter player and everything like that, I listened to all kinds of music, every one that I possibly could, from Enrico Caruso on. And I was quite happy with any sort of music that was, as long as it was good music. And the same with country music, as long as it's good country, I listened to everybody. Didn't have any favourites, because you often get this in this business. You get asked who's your favourite country singer, Bob? Well, that's a silly question, really, because if you were going to be truthful, you had to listen to Dylan, Cash, you had to listen to Buddy, you had to listen to Tex, you had to listen to all of these people. And there's thousands upon thousands of them. Gee, when I was going, I mean to say 20 years back, I knew of 2,000 country singers in Australia alone. So you can imagine how many there would be in America, how many we haven't heard. Of course, one of my favourites was sort of Don Gibson. I met him. I met Freddie Weller. I met Tex Ritter. Oh, mercy. My blood stopped running for 5 minutes. I was numb from the top of my head to the soles of my feet. To meet Tex Ritter was probably the greatest thing that ever happened. I met also Slim Whitman and a couple of others, but had lots of fun doing it. I didn't meet Waylon or Willie. I could have, but I don't know, I was doing something else at the time. My wife Elaine met them all. Along with Danita Day. Her and Danita went to the show and of course got backstage passes and everything, and they've still got their little books in there of the highwaymen and all that stuff. But I never got to meet them. But I met enough of the American guys, and one that stuck out was Jimmy Rogers, Honeycomb Jimmy, you know. He was a great man. He was just a lovely man to talk to. So was Don Gibson and Tex Ritter. He said, oh, you know, it's sort of great to be who he was, and he'd done 120 odd movies or something, and he was telling me this stuff, you know, and I told him, you know, a couple of songs that I liked of his. I said, oh, especially the High Noon thing. I said, lots of versions of that have come out, and with Frankie Lane and all them. I said, Frankie Lane was the actual hit in Australia. I said, they forgot about you, Tex. And he said, well, as I get older, Bob, he said, and he said, the movie starts to fade and the sound is fading with it. He said, and along with my royalties. So I corralled him behind the backdrop of the stage at the UNICEF show, and got to meet him there. He went down behind the backdrop to have a pipe after the first half, and then I waited outside the entrance to the backdrop until I heard him knock his pipe out on his boot. Clack, clack, clack. And I thought, oh, he's coming out, I better get ready. So I got my little bit of paper from my autograph, which I still have in there. It takes me to 1974, that was.
Can you remember any funny incidents on stage?
Funny incidents?
Funny incidents or embarrassing incidents that may have happened?
I ran up the stairs in Bill Kelly's show once and fell flat on my face and skidded over to the microphone in the blue suit and all. Picked myself up and dusted myself off. Started to sing because they were putting together, you know, the riff to go into Good Morning Darling. And I'm skidding across the stage. Anyway, I picked myself up, dusted myself off, grabbed the microphone. I gave up Good Morning. Yeah, okay. So, the crowd loved it. And Bill Kelly, when I got off, he said, keep it in. He said, that's great. I said, I'm not going to fall over every time I go to run up on one of your stages and skid across the place on my face. No, I'm not, Bill. Yeah, he said, oh, that's a bit, that went over well, Bob. Leave it in, leave it in. I didn't do a great deal in the west of Sydney. Yep. Because although I might have started out there, I was then directly involved with the in-town people like Kevin King and that, and the fabulous Crystal Palace in fabulous downtown city. That's how he used to open his little thing there of a Saturday night at the fabulous Crystal Palace. He used to say, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the fabulous Crystal Palace in fabulous downtown Sydney. And that was his words to open his little thing. Then you had people like Kenny Kitching, the great Dave Longmore on guitar, and anyone who filed through the Kevin King show, which was many of us, and Jan Kelly was one of the regulars there. Her man was Smith, Terry Smith. He was a great little band leader too, Terry Smith, and Jan. Well, just about everybody who was anybody was filing through that place at one time or another, anyone who could get there. And I had a lot to do with people like Jimmy Little and things like that too, you know. We used to pass, because Jimmy didn't, I don't think he liked aeroplanes too much. And I didn't like aeroplanes either, and we used to meet on buses going to Melbourne. He'd be going that way and I'd be going this way, vice versa. And one day he got out of his bus and he walked over at the cup of tea shop, you know, the stop that they put the coffee on.
Yeah.
and he walked over and he put his hands on his hip and he said, "Bob, we'll have to stop meeting like this." Jimmy was a wonderful guy.
He certainly was. And I believe that you have 2 or 3 albums available?
Well, I think 2.
2?
Yeah. The Cross Country Cowboy's still going, without the beer song. And the rights Elaine got off, she bought them off Nev Nichols for the Nichols and Dime record, which is a Black Sheep album. I still have those. Yeah, they're still in print as far as I'm concerned. They're rather rare. There's different prices all over the world for them, but I just say $15 each and pay the freight.
So they can buy them directly from you?
Yeah, so it's $15 each plus about $8 postage or whatever. Well, for a couple of months that I've learnt, I'm mostly now messing around with Facebook. I find that's the easiest and quickest way to be in contact with people, and now I'm sort of catching up with all the old friends I haven't seen in 20 odd years, 30 odd years, some of them. And yes, it's been a long, long time, and I'm getting back together with all these people now, guys and the girls from our days on stage. And it's, to me, very interesting, and I don't have much now to do in my days but go and play with the computer that I'm trying desperately to learn a little bit better. I can't post a photograph or anything yet, I'm not that clever, but I can write all the words and get a little bit of mail and send a little bit of mail out. I've got that far.
And if you could change anything, would you, of your career?
In my career, well, according to me, I did the whole thing wrong from day one. I don't know why it worked out at all, because knowing what I know now, I seem to go out about everything the wrong way. but you know, hindsight, we'd always like to do better in hindsight, I think. But I believe I could have done better. And it wasn't that I wasn't given the chance, I was.
Well, Bob, thank you for this interview, and I'm...
A pleasure.
And it'd be... and I can assure you that you are not forgotten. And I'm sure that people that will remember you once they see this video, and it's just a pleasure to have met you today.
Thank you very much, Jack. It's great to be on the show, and looking forward to hearing some backslack from people on Facebook. I'm sure as soon as they see this, they'll call back and give me some sort of a rundown on it.
No, thank you very much for your time.
Please send me a copy so I can look at myself.
Will do, mate. No, on that note, thank you for your time, and as I said, it's a great pleasure to have met you.
Thank you, Jack.